Welcome back. I'm Oliver Rennick. Thanks for tuning in to Chicago Future of Finance. We're a little bit over time, but that's the brilliance of the flexibility. I want to give a big special thanks to Mat Cashman for being flexible too.
Absolutely.
Joining us from OCC at the top of the show, Matt. We
to be
talked
here.
about why Chicago is so important, why we're doing what we're doing. The fact that OCC clears basically all of this is a big reason why we're here.
Yeah, it really is. And, one of the things that's really interesting about OCC as far as how it has grown over the years, and it's grown with all of the innovations and the increased volume that you're seeing in these marketplaces, is that central clearing is at the heart of what it does, right? And many times when we talk about central clearing, people don't necessarily always understand it.
Tell me about the plumbing. What does the average person need to know about the plumbing?
It's not the sexiest part of talking about option trading, right?
Right. You don't care about the plumbing until your toilet explodes.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, it's hard to make that parallel for people, but it's oftentimes like you don't care about your plumbing in your house until your plumbing doesn't work. And
right.
So OCC is the central clearing party for all of these trades that happen in the listed option space. If you're trading a listed option on an exchange, it's going through the hands of OCC. OCC essentially becomes, in that central clearing facility, the buyer to every seller and the seller to every buyer.
So making sure things meet where they need to meet.
Absolutely.
In the middle. Is there a coincidence that this is happening? A lot of these themes I've been thinking about, whether it's the advisor money that's finding its way here, the trading, like we're in the middle of the country. Like, is there a geographic reason why the plumbing is here for this type of stuff?
I don't necessarily think that there's any geographic reason now. There may have been a geographic reason when it first started, right? I mean, Chicago is the birthplace of listed options. It's the birthplace of futures, right? It is, and it still is the center of innovation in that way. But I don't think that geography necessarily plays as big a part in it now as it used to, maybe when people came here to hedge their crop exposure.
Right, they're literal.
Right?
Yeah, some of that, I think some of these guys there are doing some of that. Like I know the SMAG people. So then what on the innovation side do you have to key into to figure out if any of that plumbing changes? What is interesting to you? I saw you talking about some blockchain related stuff that seemed pretty interesting.
It is interesting. Those are, and what you're referring to is Alpaca getting an OCC membership last week, and as a clearing member now, they're not actually technically doing blockchain settlement. They're actually doing and clearing. They're actually clearing through the existing rails. But it's interesting because they are an API first, right, company that is starting in a digitally native way, and that's where that is coming from. But as far as innovation is concerned, I think up until now, especially over the last 5 years, what you've really seen is innovation on the product side of things, right? And this
how do you keep up with that? Because you do a really good job keeping up with it. I feel that because Chicago's big on education.
Yes.
Worked with a lot of educators, and I constantly see you right in line with the educators. And how do you keep up with that? Because there's a lot of new stuff coming out.
I think education is a huge part of that, right? As the exchanges and, for instance, like the ETF, issuers are going to do what they're going to do, which is they're going to create new products as a response to their customers asking for, right, different ways to hedge or different granularity in how they hedge. And from my perspective, the OIC's job is to make sure that we're keeping pace with the educational part of it, to make sure that the end user actually understands these products as they start to get rolled out. Right? I mean, my job is to make sure that you understand, if you're going to trade options, that they're levered instruments, number one.
Yep.
And then number two is to understand how the risks and benefits of those, centrally cleared and exchange listed options are what they are, and how they might be different from, for instance, an OTC option. Right?
To put you on the spot a little bit to that regard, because this is something we're going to talk about on the show, and this is why I loved having you here for the first day, because I think it sets the stage for a lot of we're going to talk with some of these products, and a lot of them seem really, they are pretty powerful.
Yes.
But as we include more and more options into these ETF wrappers, which are kind of built, they were known as these kind of simple, straightforward, but now they're not. There's all kinds of complexities with ETFs.
Sure.
How do you feel about some of these funds that are going really heavy on some of the options selling and generating income? Does that all seem pretty good, or is that going to make the plumbing harder?
It is a reality of our ecosystem right now, and so I feel like my job as an educator is to respond to the reality of that ecosystem and make sure that people understand how they work. In many ways, it's not really my job to weigh in as to whether or not these are like
Right.
the
If it's
right
someone's
products.
risk tolerance.
Yeah, exactly. And there are, I mean, they're highly regulated and overseen, like securities there, and the job of the SEC and the CFTC and all of those, right, like regulatory bodies, is to make sure that through a very rigorous review process that those products are, suitable for
Sure.
the end user.
Sure.
And then my job as an educator is to make sure that, number one, I understand them, right? And sometimes that can be challenging as well. And then to be able to figure out how to distill that down into something that I can transmit to someone else so that they understand them, right? And that's kind of the challenge of what I do. And like you said, trying to keep pace with that innovation involves obviously me teaching myself how those things work also.
The ones that I think about the most, real quick, the last point here is harnessing volatility from some of these wild trades, whether it's single stocks, whether it's crypto. We've now got a lot of ETFs. A lot of them are born here that are harnessing that volatility through income by either selling options or selling spreads of some form. Do you feel those are generally palatable for the everyday person? Is it a alternative to riding the crazy train of Bitcoin? If you can instead just say, hey, well, let's just scalp some of the juicy, gamblers out there and we can still get a nice return.
Yeah, I think that those products are, when they're aligned with people's risk tolerances and their investment goals, I think that they can be great products and great ways to access different parts of the market that you might not have been able to access 2 or 5 years ago. Right? Think about the number of ETFs and particularly structured products or leveraged ETFs that exist now relative to 5 years ago. It's amazing to look at that graph and see how many of those products exist.
Explosive.
And so from my perspective, I think it is a good thing for people to have that access and to be able to democratize that access in that way. I always revert back to making sure that people understand the leverage that's inherent in those products, because oftentimes, especially those things that you're talking about, have multiple layers of leverage.
Right.
And anytime, for instance, that you see structured or defined outcome in the headline of an ETF, guess what? They're using options to make that happen.
Yeah.
So they are in some way, shape, or form. They may not be trading them in here, but they're trading them somewhere, and then they're being traded in order to generate that kind of leverage. So make sure that you understand the plumbing, as it were, of those products as well. That's very important when you're trading.
Great stuff, Mat Cashman. An excellent perspective to set us on the course for what we're going to be talking about here over the coming weeks and days. Principal of Investor Education at OCC. Hopefully we'll be talking some more. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Great.